context. And it's been one of the main reasons I really wanted to come back and see how people have integrated and implemented different strategies that I originally shared. And I know Catherine has been working with you. It'll be so interesting for me to be able to come and see what different things people are using in their context. So thank you. Thank you to Gail for Guten Abend. Bonsoir from Ellie. Buenas noches to Amanda, and let's carry on. Okay, so today the key areas of discussion will be really focusing on the 4 points that you can see on the slide now. A lot of it is welcoming and supporting new to English children. And Catherine has shared originally how she worked very closely with 4 different settings who had a very sharp increase in EAL learners. And it's going to be an opportunity to hear about the practice that they put in and the strategies and how that support's really panned out. So welcoming and supporting new to English children, building inclusive practice and strong foundations for early language development was one of the key themes that when reading what different people were doing had come up. Then looking on to supporting children and families of asylum seeking and refugee backgrounds. We'll be hearing from different settings and strategies they've been using to support these people, and then embracing diverse cultures and languages, valuing and celebrating the rich cultural and linguist diversity within our settings and different ideas to really embrace that. And then finally, we'll be looking a lot at tracking and promoting English language. So a little bit more on assessment and how you monitor that progress. And then
oops, I think we just lost Anna for a second, but I'm sure she'll be back. Can I just say thank you to everyone who's put their name in the chat? That's really helpful to know who's here and where they're from. I think I'll just carry on. I'll just step in for Anna until her signal is back. And can you hear me all right, everybody? Yeah, great. Great, thanks. Yes, so it's been such a pleasure working with the 4 settings, and so pleased that 3 of you can be here. Unfortunately, one of the settings couldn't be here tonight because of their staff meeting in Golden Valley. But we're really pleased that we've got some input from Emma Bryant, a childminder from North Somerset, who we were working with previously as well. So Anna will share about that later as well. Hi, Anna. I think we just lost you for a moment, so I just flipped on to the next slide.
Hi. Thank you very much. I'm really sorry about that.
No worries. No worries.
But it might be different things. Let's carry on. Yeah, so really looking forward to hearing these 3 different reflections. And I know Catherine's worked really closely with you. And multilingual lens, it would be great to hear how some of the strategies and ideas that I'd originally talked about in the vlogs a long time ago are actually coming in and how you've overcome those with Catherine and the support. And at the very end of the session, what I thought would be nice is if we could do a little question and answer session after each person share the discussion more around that, and then presentation, and then we can have a question and answer session after that. And at the very end, I'll read the blog that Emma, one of the childminders, has shared with us. So that'll be really great for others on the call to
Anna, unfortunately, your sound is slightly off. I don't know if you could turn your camera off just for this speaking bit to see if it improves the audio. Sorry about this, everyone. I've just muted you, Anna, to see if it... Oh, I don't want to mute you though, do I? The opposite. Right, sorry about this. Now I've muted Anna and I can't unmute her. I meant to try and turn the video off. Apologies there, Anna. If you can unmute yourself, that would be good. I suggest we start with Old MacDonald's, if that's all right with you, Chelsea. That would be really, really fabulous to hear from you about your parent handbook and strengthening communication. The family app sounds really interesting, and then adding building more meaningful relationships with families who speak. So if it's okay, I'll stop sharing the slides so we can see you and hear from you. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Thanks.
Amazing. So when we started the EAL project, we had Catherine come in and do an audit with us, and she told us like our good things and the things that maybe we should improve in our practice. And some of the things that were stated in the kind of good things was having like a "Where in the world are you from" board. So like the pictures were around of the children, and having like children's additional languages up on the wall so that we had like key words that we might use in the setting. So when we looked at our kind of what our improvements was, it was kind of around our parent partnership and how we can embrace those languages of additional languages in our setting. So some of the things that was suggested was like using the Say Hi app, so we can communicate with parents and translate a little bit better, and using like face-to-face meetings with English as additional language parents. So what we kind of did in our setting was we created our parent handbook, which is like an information book. And it has all the information about all the things that parents may need to know about the setting. So like key members of staff, what to bring on my first day of nursery, and what a settling in session looks like and that kind of practice. But at the beginning of our handbook, we had translations in the key languages in our setting. So things like Russian, Bulgarian, and it basically had it translated saying that you could use like Word and translate this whole documentation so that you can understand your child's kind of what to expect from nursery. And if they had any questions, they could email us. So we had all of that translated in their home language, and it was a Word document that people could use, and it was easily accessible so that they could translate it themselves. So we had a lot of positive feedback from that. A lot of parents seemed to kind of understand the kind of process of a nursery a little bit better. And the other thing that we invested was our family app. So I don't know how many settings use family. It's an amazing app to use. And the reason why we were so intrigued to use it is because it translates into 50 different languages. So we can put observations up, we can put newsletters up, any information about illnesses, and it will translate it into their home language. We had a lot of positive feedback from parents with this, and you can normally see what kind of parents translate it because it will say see translation. And we see a lot of parents using it in their home language, and things like handovers became a lot easier because we could use kind of digital resources to do handovers as well as using translation so that we can get those kind of in-depth conversations with parents. The other thing that we did is we adapted our settling in process to kind of readapt back to kind of pre-COVID times. So the first settling in process we have is a 2-hour session where the parent comes into the setting. And during this time, we fill out the All About Me form together because we found that a lot of children, we have the translated words on the wall. However, a lot of children is exactly like in English language, for example, banana, children might say nana. So it was kind of understanding those kind of how children pronounce it. If they're saying pish to go to the toilet in Bulgarian, they might say pish. And that we know that that means that they need to go to the toilet. So parents were able to communicate with that a little bit more clearer. And it also gave parents 2 hours to kind of get their kind of say across, especially if they had difficulty with English themselves. They kind of had that kind of practitioner close with them to kind of have that conversation in a little bit more depth, and we kind of get more understanding about the children's English development. We also get a lot about the parents' English development, and we know how we can support that family during handovers and whether we kind of are more reliant on the translation or the family app or the parent handbook to kind of get those kind of important messages across.
Wow, that's incredible. Thanks, Chelsea. I'd not heard of the family app. Can I ask if anyone else, could you put in the chat if you've used it, if anybody else has used it? You aware of it, Gail and Liz?
We've used the family website for some resources around equality of opportunity, that kind of thing. So they are, they are a good resource. I'm not so familiar with the app, but I am familiar with the organisation and some of the resources that they provide.
Yeah, it's like it's tapestry, but kind of like an in-depth. It's more of the expensive side, but because of the amount of children we had with EAL, it was really important to invest in that.
Yes. Yeah. I was working with a different nursery today in Bristol, but I shall certainly tell them about that. Thanks, Chelsea. Have you had any, could I ask, and if anybody else has got any questions for Chelsea, please do pop them in the chat or put your hand up. That would be great to hear. Have you had any feedback from parents, Chelsea, about how useful they found it, or is it?
We kind of see it with how reliant some parents are more on it. So we'll see like a lot of our communication after like a handover and things like that, they will clarify things through the family app because they know that they can kind of translate in their language. So we see a lot of like parents who are new to English themselves or taking English lessons themselves kind of reliant on it. So it's quite important with us in our setting.
Yes. Great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that good practice. Has anybody got a question for Chelsea or a comment on what they've done at Old McDonald's there? Not for now. Okay, I think we're all probably blown away by how much you've done there. I bet that's made a huge difference to the communication and therefore strengthening relationships with families. Thanks so much, Chelsea. I've really enjoyed coming in and working with your setting. Apologies, Anna's obviously having technical difficulties, but she will join us, I'm sure, when she can. If something comes to you about what Chelsea said, and you think later you've got a question, just pop it in the chat box and then we can come back to questions with everyone at the end. So, oh, thanks, Terry. Terry's just put in the chat, unfortunately, we can't find any apps that translate Dari. Sometimes some languages are harder than others. Chelsea?
I know with the family app, you can message them on there and say that you request a language so that they can adapt it. Yeah, it's quite lovely. So you can message the team and say that you request a language and they can see what they can do on their side.
Ah, excellent. That's really good. Okay. Okay, well, thank you so much.
We've got Tracy with her hand up, Catherine.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, yes. Yeah, it was just to say that with the UK resettlement team, we've got families where Dari is their first spoken language, and apparently Copilot is a very good translator, to the point where we've had the translation checked because we've got members of the team that speak Dari in order to cross-reference it, and they have said it's been a really good, accurate conversion. So just to share that as well.
Well, that's really useful. Thank you. Right, Copilot. Thanks very much. Okay, can go back to the PowerPoint here. And see who we've got up next. So, Sarah from Christchurch. Yes, it was great working with you there and also going back to do a staff meeting as well. And yeah, so really pleased to hear how you're tracking and supporting English language development, progress you've made with that. You wanted to share embracing diverse cultures and languages and encouraging parents to share items and experiences. And you sent us some photos. Would you like me to get those photos up to show, Sarah?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, if you start talking and then I'll get the photos. Yeah. Thank you.
At present, we've got 20 of the 39 children at preschool that have got EAL, and we've got 11 different languages. So we've got quite a wide range at the moment. So Catherine came in and did a staff meeting for us, and we've been looking very much at displaying different languages and getting parents involved in helping us with the different languages we've got at preschool. When parents start, if it's a different language, we always ask them to write out hello and welcome in their language and their handwriting, so that everything's not typed out where we've had to Google Translate things. So it's nice to have things written out in their language. And then at the beginning of September, we've started to give all parents with a different language a complete set of the Poetry Basket poems, and all the parents that we've asked have been more than happy to write them out in their own handwriting and in their own language. So we've built up quite a big library now of all the Poetry Baskets in different writing. So we display our English written one, and then all around it we have them written out in all the different languages of the children at preschool. We then take a photo of that and put that on all the children's tapestry account, so everyone can see all the different languages. And it also helps then the parents can either teach the child, the parent, the poetry in English or in their home language, and that's been really popular. We find that's worked really well with a lot of the parents have been really keen to do that. We then looked at introducing more resources into our imagination play areas. So we've asked parents to bring in stuff from home that they might have finished with, or that anything that they've brought from their home country that they would let us have. And we've built up quite a display of different things. We've also had parents sending in quite a lot of food items as well from their home language, lots of cakes, and we had sweets in last week for the Holy Festival. One of the parents sent them in. We've also had traditional china and tablecloths, cooking pots, mugs, traditional costumes. And we've also had parents that have sent in pictures of their traditional food, but then they've also written us explanations of why they have it and what's gone on. And we've put those up in our home corner and our imagination areas for the children to see, and they've really enjoyed looking at them. So that slide that's there now, it's great because it's had all their handwriting, which I think is important rather than just everything being printed. The parents have been really keen to do this, and one of the parents specifically came up and thanked us for asking them about their home culture. So I think parents are very keen to share with you, so it's good to ask them for items from home for them. We've also got one of our we send home, and we ask parents to record stories that their child particularly likes in their home language. They then bring the iPad back, and we've got them then quite a library of different stories in the different home languages that the children can listen to during the session. And we found that all the children have enjoyed listening to them, whether they understand the language or not. So that's been a really good, useful one as well. Last year, some of our parents recorded some of the Poetry Baskets for North Somerset, and I believe those are still on YouTube, Gail. I'm not sure, but I understand that anyone can access those on the YouTube channel. We then also use the Babcock EAL assessment that Better Bilingual recommended to us. This is a really good way of assessing how the children's English is happening during the sessions with us. It's a good starting point, and then we look at them every term to see how much further the children have moved on, and it also gives us then an area to look at if we find that they're not progressing as well as they should be, and it just gives us a really good idea of where the child is in their English language at that point. So I think that covers what we've been doing.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Sarah. That's brilliant. I can just quickly flash up the Babcock here, just to show if anybody's interested in what Sarah was referring to then. It's from A to E, the English proficiency of the Band A descriptors that you might look at. Can I ask you, Sarah, have you shown parents this at all, or referred to this, or is it something that you're just working
We
on as a
haven't,
team?
no, it's something we tend to use just for us rather than with parents, yes.
Yes, yeah. But do you feel the team is getting an understanding of it?
Definitely, yes. They all like using it. It is a little bit of a tick sheet, but it is just a good quick starting point for everyone, and then it doesn't take too much time to do, so you're not thinking, oh, another document, something else that's got to be done. But it just covers everything, and we find as well we can then see quickly if there's an area we feel that a child's needs some extra work on.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank
Any
you so
questions?
much. Can everybody hear me now?
Oh, yes.
I
I can see you, Anna. Sorry.
I just wanted to say I'm very sorry about that. Of course, we haven't had a power cut for months, and then we just have a power cut in the whole house for that 10 minutes. So I'm back. Thank you very much for that, Sarah. That was really interesting. I was going to ask you a little bit about the assessment. Do you just share that with other practitioners, or is that something that you start at the beginning of the year? Do you share it in a staff meeting, or is it just something that that all of you use, or is it just something
we all know, because we're a preschool, there's only 6 of us anyway, and we're all in one room together, so yeah, so we're all the staff are aware of it. It's just a very easy way of showing a starting point and then looking to see how the children are moving on, specifically on their English, rather than the whole of the EYFS. It's a good sort of target point.
Great, thank you. Okay, so have we got, moving on to the next one? Sorry, because I was away for that first part. Catherine, could you just introduce the next reflection? Would that be okay?
Yes, that's absolutely fine. So the next one is
so here we have Rydale Nursery. Ellie, who's going to be talking about welcoming families with EAL and the challenges faced by the refugee families that they've had, and also a little bit about what has made the difference, and the funding and support for parents to access different financial and wellbeing services.
Hiya. So we initially joined the Better Bilingual scheme because we had a higher number of multilingual families kind of inquiring at the setting and starting at the setting. And for our local immediate area, we hadn't experienced many multilingual families before, especially not ones who did receive or need much further support than the typical families we've previously been welcoming in. And we wanted to make sure that we were supporting these families sufficiently and we had the kind of correct information, which is why we joined on with Catherine. So our setting, upon reflection, that the management team and the staff have done is that we haven't always typically been very diverse, partly due to our local area. In the last year or so, this has really changed a lot. We've seen a lot of different languages and cultures come into the local area, which is fantastic. This has had a really big impact on us as a setting, though, because we quickly identified that we didn't have the tools or the knowledge to effectively support these children to develop in a way that was going to be most beneficial for them. So by working with Catherine, we were really able to support our staff team to understand different ways to introduce and consistently provide access to different languages, home languages, and for the children who are native English speakers, to support them in introducing different languages into play and really building up bonds with their peers as well. So, for example, we currently speak Russian keywords to a child who was in our baby room, who at the time was non-verbal, although one parent was Russian, one parent's English. They swapped between what they were talking to her at home. So it was really big when we kind of said to Mum, oh, we'd like to support that here. So she wrote down a few keywords for us so that we could start introducing that language to a pre-talker, which was really beneficial for her. So now she is talking, she talks both English and Russian. We've also got a family who speak Dari. They have a little bit of English, but the understanding is not great. So we very frequently translate documents and emails to them. I've been using Google Translate, so it's really great that Copilot was brought up. It's really nice that we'll be able to use something different. So this really allows us to make sure whatever we're putting across in an email, for example, if we're suggesting something to the family, that we can put it across in English so we know what we are saying to them, but also send across the sentence underneath in Dari as well, which the parent has fed back to say that it makes it much easier to understand. So in general, for the setting, we're still really expanding and working on introducing more resources so that we're providing a culturally rich environment. Most recently, we've spent time discussing at staff meeting what resources that all the staff think would be beneficial for the children. We're also working closely with parents, especially those who are in receipt of EYPP or maybe in receipt of other types of funding, to see what different resources they would maybe have at home or what things they would find beneficial for their child whilst they're at the setting. So then following our advice from Catherine and then group discussions with the other settings involved, we developed a parent prospectus similar to what Chelsea said. We really loved the idea when she showed us hers. So our parent prospectus has a translatable paragraph at the start that we can amend to fit any new language of any family. We've also added an inclusivity statement to our inquiry form for prospective parents, stating that the form can be helped to be completed when necessary. We've only used the translation on the prospectus a few times, but parents have said that it's been really beneficial in putting across the important points of the settle process. We've also found that having this document, some families are able to read this version and then feel a lot more confident asking us questions. For example, the family we've got that speak Dari, when we provided a copy that was in Dari, they were able to pinpoint certain parts of our routine that they wanted to question and say, well, how will this fit into my child's current routine? One of the main challenges that we have faced in the last year or so is supporting children from refugee or asylum seeking backgrounds. We found that taking on children who are part of families undergoing the asylum process has been really tricky. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of help to access funded hours or general support for families. The children in this situation are eligible for the universal 15 hours, although this is actively not told to a lot of the families. So we've been working really hard to kind of make sure that families are aware of what support is out there and that they can access the funding. Something we found with a couple of our families who were going through the asylum seeking process was that they didn't have passports or access to their children's birth certificates, which stops the application of funding being available. So we've actually found, working with the funding team, they've been fantastic, that there is a Section 95 document which proves lack of identification, which you can use instead of original ID for the child. So that was really fantastic for us to be able to put that across to other families in the same situation. So this meant that we had children that were able to access both the universal hours and EYPP to further support the child whilst they were at the setting, to be able to get different resources for them. We had some children who actually that meant that for them, because of the situation they were in at home, we were able to provide extra activities. A couple of children we actually provided extra clothes as well. So it's really beneficial being able to get that funding in place and then break down the barriers that the parents were facing as well. So the staff have also found different ways to engage the families and their interests. We work very closely with the families to make sure that children especially children who speak very little English, are being supported with things that they like to do at home, and we're trying to mirror that in the setting so that they feel as comfortable as possible. And one of the other things that the management team have been doing, particularly with the families rather than the children, is putting them in contact with local parenting groups and supporting school applications for the older children. Overall, although we have a much lower number of EAL children than some of the other settings involved, we found that with Catherine's support and with the support of the other settings, because everyone's been fantastic in all the questions that we tend to have, the general help for the families has really made a massive difference, especially around Clevedon, and we feel really privileged that we've been able to provide that support and make sure that those children are getting a more rounded experience being in nursery. So we're really pleased to have been part of it.
Fantastic, thank you. That sounds amazing. Like you're really just have done so much, particularly, you know, then supporting, particularly with like the supporting of applications for schools and things like that, which isn't necessarily in your remit. I know that when I was last teaching in Bristol, we had lots of Afghan refugees that were living in the Hilton just down the road, and it was very temporary, but it was just for 6 months. And one of the biggest challenges for us, we had 76 altogether of refugee children who came to the school between for 6 months, but for very, very limited times. And that was one of the hardest things, was not only adapting our own environment and our EYFS setting, but actually helping parents to really understand a completely different education system. So I know that is really challenging, and you're having to sort of think on your feet every day to tailor that support for each individual. So that sounds like that's really important work that you are doing. So well done.
Thank you.
That's really interesting. Does anybody have any questions about the different, like the environment and adapting, like the role play and the resources that Ellie's been using? I was wondering about stories, and do you have like access to multilingual, and you know, making sure that you're having stories about different types of families and making sure that they're culturally appropriate. I was wondering about what sort of stories you're reading when you're reading in groups, if you had any.
That's something that we're working on at the moment. That's one of the things that in our previous staff meeting that staff did kind of identify. We've got some generic language ones. For example, we've got, like, you know, we've got French, we've got Spanish, but when we've got a lot more children from places like Bulgaria, we've got children from Afghanistan, we had children from the Caribbean. We didn't find that we had much in their languages or their cultures, so we're really working at the moment on expanding that and trying to use some of our EYPP funding for the certain children to do that.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Anna, there's a question in the chat box, which is, can I ask where you can pick up the form to use for a form of identification for refugees? That's Joe.
So it don't have a form. When families are provided with either refugee status or asylum seeking status, they will get given a Section 95 document as part of their asylum documents that will state that they have had their identification taken off of them. Yeah, most families, if you Google it, it comes up on the government website, but most families, or that we, in our experience, have been quite willing to kind of bring all the identification in, all the paperwork in and show us, and then we can just submit the right ones.
I think that's so helpful, and the fact that you've found that out, Ellie, and are sharing it, I think would be really impactful, because yeah, other people may not know that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And also with these things, they're changing all the time as well. So it's really good to hear what, you know, when I was working, it was 2 years ago, but I know that things have changed in terms of the different routes people have to go in. So that was really, really interesting. Thank you, Ellie. Did anybody else wanted to ask anything before we could move on? I'm going to read a blog from Emma. I was wondering who is a childminder who sent this on. So she was a blog about good practice as a childminder. I didn't know if anybody else had any other questions before moving on to this. I've just seen that we've got something in the chat that said that Sam said that we've had a few parents who have tried to access 2-year-old funding, but it says they're not eligible for public funds. Is there anything we can do about this?
I can answer that
Sure.
one. If you do have any parents, if you signpost them to the 2-year-old funding inbox, we do have an application form. There still are some criteria that they need to evidence, but we can manually create a code for them, with our funding team. So just let us know if you do have any parents in that situation, Sam.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think so I'll go on and thank you very much for sharing. I'm going to read a blog now that's from Emma, who has wanted to share some sort of key messages and takeaways from her Better Bilingual input. Thank you for sharing it there, Catherine. So she started by talking about how bilingualism should be embraced and celebrated, not just left at the front door when the child comes into my setting and then picked back up on their way out. I really like that first point. A reminder that each child needs to be respected as an individual, and that coupled with working with parents, we should strive for the best for each child attending my setting. And the third takeaway was I was concerned that some of the things I was putting in place for the little girl I have with the EAL could be seen as tokenism, but I was reassured that what I am already doing is helping, supporting the child in my setting and is part of meeting her individual needs. And that's so true. I think that often when I was working in Bristol at Willow Park, lots of teachers would come and ask for certain schemes and certain books, and it was really difficult to recommend that because it was always so individual depending on who the child is that you have at the time. So it was, I think, like really tailoring your environment and your language and your resources as you're going along is really the best way to sort of adapt everything for the learners that you've got in your care at the time.
Excuse me, Anna, could I just interrupt a minute?
Yeah.
I was wondering why the words were different that you were reading, and while we were off screen, I was having a little practice of translating this, and this is quite an interesting point actually, because I was going to show you. Can you see me clicking on translate? Yeah. So I was going to show you how you could translate if you weren't sure how to translate from one language to another on a Word document. But what's interesting is I translated it and then I translated back, and basically that's quite a good way of checking as well. When it's translated, I translate it to Dari, then back to English, it came up with a slightly different version. I was thinking, why is Anna saying different words to what's on there? So that's really interesting just as a point of using these translation tools. You can sort of check that, but I'm just going to get up the one that actually was the original. But you carry on and I'll get the other one up. Thanks.
Okay, so now she talks about exactly what they did. So before the child started in my setting, I found out as much as possible from the family about how they use their first language in the home and with their child or children. I asked questions about any songs, rhymes, poems, books that they shared at home regularly, and I found out whether they celebrated any festivals at home and was there anything important to them in their culture. For them, sitting together as a family at meal times is very important. I tried to learn a few simple phrases before the little girl started. On occasions, I or my family may say a phrase in her native language using Google Translate. When we do this, there is always a huge smile from the little girl, and then she replies in her first language. I think that's one of the same things that everybody's been sharing, and it's such a simple thing that you just do as and when, and it's obviously so important because you're immediately just showing how much you value their home language and value them. and you yourself are so eager to be interested to learn about their language, which I think is really, really important to do, particularly in that initial stage, and also particularly when you're first meeting your families and parents as well. She goes on to talk about how my EAL child is responding. So my 2.5-year-old little girl is settled and is progressing at her expected level in all areas. Her understanding and spoken language amazes me every time she attends. I celebrate this with the family. Video, she sometimes speaks completely in her first language and understand what she has said. Using complete sentences of 7 to 8 words in English, and she's also playing alongside her peers and speaking to them, which is amazing. So what I'm going to do next. So we're now at the stage where we are ready to learn a few songs in her first language with the other children that attend. I have recently purchased some flashcards so she can see the pictures and the written words in both English and her first language. And I'm also looking to purchase a couple of dual language storybooks. Finally, we are looking forward to near Christmas, where we will learn about an important festival to the family and join in with some of the traditions as a setting. So thank you so much to Emma for that. And originally, when I was doing the vlogs, I wasn't exactly sure where different people's settings were. And I've always been based in a school or in a nursery. And it was really reading that. What I really took away is that even though this is a home setting, it's still using the same strategies. Lots of the same ideas can be beneficial for them there as well. So particularly the part about, making sure you're using stories that are in dual language. At the very beginning.
Oh dear, slight glitch there.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh yes, you're back now, Anna. You're back now. Thanks. We just lost a couple of words there, but absolutely, yeah, it's important at home as well. Are there any questions from anyone about or comments about Emma's blog?
Oh, thank you, Annie. This is something that I do with all the documents now, so it might not be quite accurate. I do think that that's something that I've been talking about with the nursery teachers at my school here in Lisbon. We've really been looking at what sort of documents or what questions we ask when we first meet with families, because I think that's also quite personal, and the way that some of our EYFS teachers and practitioners do it differently depending on if the child is an English speaker or if their parents speak. So it's really important to make sure you're adapting that for different children, particularly if they're arriving with no English at all and no understanding at all of the school and the environment. So we have actually been looking a lot about how we adapt those induction forms for multilingual learners. I don't know if people have a similar form they share or something different that they do, particularly for multilingual learners, or how they adapt their induction process, if you wanted to share. The learning songs in home language, I think we're going to do. Yeah, that's nice, Chelsea.
Amanda's just got a question about the LINK programme and asking if EAL children are eligible for the Inclusion LINK programme. Amanda, it's not one of the automatic criteria. If the children are from refugee and asylum seeking backgrounds, then yes, that is one of the automatic criteria. But if you felt there was a need, it might be worthwhile having dropping Sarah Evans a line if you felt that there was anything particular, you know, if the child had some additional needs around other aspects of their learning, then just drop Sarah Evans a line, I think. And thank you, Catherine, for sharing the YouTube link. I was trying to do that and failed.
Yeah, that's okay. Also, just going to pop into the chat, Anna, the Mama Lisa website. Chelsea and others might like this one. It's songs and rhymes in different languages. Don't know if anyone's used it.
Yeah, that's a really lovely one. We often use that in nurseries for years, actually. It's always been a really popular one, and it's very nice for when new families particularly come, and you know, finding out what songs are traditional songs as well from their countries is a really lovely way of introducing them. And in my last school, we used to do it as, instead of sort of a Christmas show, we actually learnt songs from different countries around the world that children came from, or their families came from, and that was our end of year sort of, we called it the winter performance. So it's a really nice way of bringing everybody together through song.
Nice, really nice.
Okay, any other questions that we'd like to talk about? I was wondering if I'll also, what I will do is share a sort of a collection of different stories that I've selected over the years from multilingual and other different websites, and ones that I've used that I've got here in Lisbon that are particularly good for families around the world. So I can share all of those afterwards by email with some links if that would be useful for you, Ellie. You were saying you were looking for some new stories.
I think that would be good. Good, Anna. While people are just thinking if there's any other questions for Anna or any of the speakers, I just also put the Unite for Literacy website. Would it be all right if I quickly showed that, Anna?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, because I was showing this to nursery parents this morning and last week, and I'd forgotten about it, to be honest. And it's free, and it's really lovely because obviously it's nice to read a real story and a multilingual story, but it's also sometimes nice, I think, for children to language on a website as well. So you can choose your language by going to the sort of globe at the top there, and then it will show you the stories on this website in that language, and then you can read it like a book, and then you can ask it to read out in English. Anything, and I no. Yeah, so it's a really lovely free website. When we talked about it this morning, some parents thought, oh, this is lovely, this is it, and then some others were like, we don't want our children looking at screens all the time. But of course it's moderation and everything, isn't it? But I think there will be screen time. So if we can make sure that, you know, some of the screen time is also celebrating children's languages, it's a great resource, really. So I popped that in the chat as well, Anna.
Thank you. Also, we use often these picture dictionaries which come with a talking pen, which are a really, really nice way of, you know, putting them in the book corner or working one-to-one with children, where you can read them in English and then the pen translates them into different languages, which is a really nice way. It's really nice to put them for other children to listen to. And we also have used, I don't know if you ever use audiobooks and stories and songs with headphones for children in continuous provision, because there's lots of lovely different stories in home languages as well that you can download from Audible, and yeah, mainly Audible actually. That's what we've been using recently, and that's really lovely for children when they're going for quiet time, and you know it's very tiring listening to a different language all day, and just for them to go and have some quiet time and listen to a story in a language that they understand is another nice idea to set up.
Anna, are you going to mention your vlogs that you did for North Somerset that are also on our YouTube channel?
I was going to, if you could just show the last slide, Catherine, I can show that I put those where they are, because there's a link for them. So I did a series of 6 different vlogs for North Somerset, and each one of them were focusing on a different area of provision and different ways of being able to enhance your environment. The first one was really about the environment and about how to really welcome children from multilingual backgrounds into your classroom, or your setting, thinking about what you have on your walls, thinking about different dual language signs, for example, and thinking about really what parents feel when they first walk into the setting. So that was the first one. Then the second one was about lots of how to adapt story time. So ideas of being able to adapt your, the stories that you're using, but also the way visual aids and different ways of questioning children who may not be understanding the language or be coming from a completely different environment as well, and not even sat down and listened to a story before with other children in that setting. The third one talks a lot about phonics. I'm not sure if all of you are teaching of phonics, but of ways to be able to adapt different phonics programs. So I used actually Read Write Inc, and now I'm actually using Little Wandle, and I've also used letters and sounds, and doesn't really matter which phonics scheme you're using, but I come up with sort of different ideas of being able to adapt those for a really multilingual setting. Oh, thank you very much for putting all of those on there, Catherine.
It's all right, I'll put the link in the chat.
Yeah. And then continuous provision. So in my previous setting, we had a lot of EAL learners. I think I had a class of 30 and 27 of them were EAL learners, and about 14 of them were new arrival children as well. So the continuous provision was always being really thought with that at the forefront when I was setting different things up. So this vlog talks particularly about different areas and different zones of your classroom, like the role play area, and also the book corner and the nature table and the arts and crafts activities. So all of the different zones that you have in your setting, how can you make sure you are meeting the needs and adapting it for something for your multilingual learners. I talk also about registration time and using a different language. We used to have a language of the month, so we'd always learn a different way of being able to say good morning and good afternoon, and if we were having packed lunch or school dinner in a different language of where children were coming from. And that was also something that we'd share and print out all around the school, so parents as well would be familiar with learning other languages from other families. So that's that. We talk a lot about that in the registration. And in the next one, it was a lot about the induction. So again, I touched on that a little bit before, but actually thinking when you are first welcoming families, or you're doing an early years induction, how can you adapt that for new families and new children who are completely new to this type of education system. So hopefully going back and revisiting those, now you have the learners that you have now, you'll be able to find some tips that you can adapt for for your settings. I don't know if you've heard of story stones. That was just the last one I was going to say. If you use story stones at all, that's a really nice way of beginning to build language just through and modeling how you begin to use a story. And that's one of my ideas that's on there. It's a little bit similar to helicopter stories. Do you use helicopter stories in your settings? So I talk a little bit more about that because it's adapted particularly for younger children, I'd say more 2 and 3 year olds. So thank you for putting those on, and you can find them on the link here. So thank you so much for everybody for coming. I'm extremely sorry about my power cut at the beginning. It threw me, but really nice to hear all of those different reflections, and yes to Emma that wrote to say that she was unable to make it. It is recorded, so you'll be able to go back and really listen to everybody's presentations.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you, obviously, to Anna and Catherine, and to our wonderful early years sector from North Somerset, Ellie, Chelsea, and Sarah, and Emma for adding that blog as well. Just to sort of put it together, really. You know, some wonderful words that came to mind as I was listening to all of those wonderful presentations about the work, that real equity that we were talking about a lot. You know, focusing on children that need that little bit extra from us. And also celebrating EAL obviously as a real kind of superpower. You know, it can be, you know, such a fantastic thing to celebrate. But this work has been respectful, informative, welcoming. It encompasses feelings of belonging. It's inclusive. We celebrate diversity, ensuring people are heard and making people feel that they matter. That lovely bit about Emma, about that huge smile on that little girl's face when she, you know, she knew that somebody was going part way to support that communication and to, you know, embrace her world. And partnership, community, communication and collaboration. So particularly thank you for those shared learning experiences. And I don't want to put pressure on Ellie, Chelsea and Sarah, but I did wonder if you would put your emails in the chat, because people have, you know, that have come to this have given up another hour at the end of a long day. So I'm sure there are questions that people will think about, but sometimes people don't want to ask questions thinking if I ask that, we're going to extend the session a little bit more. And actually, this is wonderful, but an hour's enough. But if there's things that come up, or there's things that they talked about, particularly those parent booklets that people might want to take forward and develop, you might just want to connect with Ellie, Sarah, or Chelsea, if they don't mind. If they don't want to, that's fine. If you don't put it in, you can always come back through myself and Liz. And a thanks to Liz for really driving the project from this end for us. So thank you all for your time. You know, what a lot the early years can teach the world, particularly at the moment, I think, with all that wonderful you know, inclusivity and, you know, just meeting people where they need to be met in order to feel that they belong and to move forward and grow together. So thank you all, everybody, for a wonderful project. And we will, this has been recorded, so we will send it out. So of course, all those links, etc., that Catherine's been sharing as we've moved through this, and will be readily available for you to explore at your leisure. So thank you, everybody, for your time and your input and your expertise.
I can see Ellie's got her hand up.
Hello. I just wanted to say thank you to Catherine, because she's been so supportive for a very large amount of questions that come flying her way. She really is a fantastic contact to have with any EAL questions. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Ellie. That's really lovely. Thank you. It's been such a pleasure and an honour to work with you and Sarah and Chelsea, and I'm just blown away by what you've done, and so pleased that Anna's hosted this webinar for you to share it. But thank you for sharing it, because it really is incredible. So yeah, really enjoyed working with you.
We've enjoyed being part of it as well. It's been a really good thing to work through and to meet up with everyone else and with you. It's been good.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like it's been really good to listen to other nurseries, and especially listening to kind of, I've written things down that Sarah's said in this meeting alone of like things that she's done since the last meeting, and it's really useful to hear it. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Gail and Liz, for organising it all as well. And thanks, Anna.
Wonderful. Lots of thanks. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah, enjoy everybody, and I'll put the last things in the chat box as well now. But I really, yeah, very, very grateful to all of you for everything that you've done. It was really quite mind-blowing that everyone's doing really important work.
Yeah. Keep up the good work. Right, have a lovely evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.